The message came in the middle of the night shift on relay station E92. It was old, broken, and nearly lost in the static, but the words were still clear enough to freeze the blood of anyone listening. Don't go to Earth. It's a trap. Lieutenant Trell stared at the transmission screen, his purple skin pale under the dim lights. He played the message again and again. Same voice, same warning, same fear behind the words. The transmission was marked as coming from Scout Vessel Vrikshin 7 declared missing 5 cycles ago near Terran space. Trell grabbed the log and sent it straight to the Galactic Empire's High Command. Protocol demanded urgent attention for any warnings related to Earth. After all, Earth was the last planet that had not bowed to the Empire. The only world that remained independent, unclaimed, and untouched. But instead of alarm, Trell was met with laughter. "Ah, the humans again," chuckled Supreme Admiral Voran. "Sitting tall in the command chamber, the primitives who believe. They can scare us with whispers and ghost stories." The council chamber echoed with cold amusement. One elder waved his tentacle lazily and said, "How many times will this story repeat? We sent fleets before, and Earth stays quiet." Trell stood in silence, gripping his datapad. "But sir, this message is different," he said. "The scout ship Vrikshin 7, it vanished near Earth, and now—" "Enough," Voran cut him off, voice sharp. "We have no time for cowards' tales." The Emperor himself stood from his throne, golden eyes narrowing. "We are the Empire," he said, voice deep and proud. "We do not fear backwater planets." He raised one long hand. "Prepare the fleet," he commanded. "We will take Earth and end this myth once and for all." Trell swallowed hard. His hands trembled as he stepped back. He had done his duty, but a terrible feeling sat heavy in his chest. Later that night, Trell stood alone on the edge of the station, watching the stars through a wide viewing window. The invasion fleet shimmered in formation, dozens of massive Empire warships ready for hyperspace jump. Hundreds of smaller fighters surrounded them like a swarm. They looked powerful, invincible, unstoppable. Yet Trell's heart beat faster. Not with pride, but fear. He replayed the message one last time quietly, under his breath. "Don't go to Earth. It's a trap." The next morning, the fleet vanished into hyperspace. All comms went silent as the jump was completed, and the stars above Earth glowed quietly peaceful, untouched, innocent. But Trell couldn't shake the feeling. Something wasn't right. The silence wasn't calm, it was waiting. The Empire celebrated the launch with pride. Banners flying, military hymns echoing through the stations. News channels played dramatic music and showed heroic images of ships racing toward the savage blue planet. Speeches filled the air. "This is not a war, it is a lesson. We bring order to chaos. Earth will finally kneel." But Trell sat alone in the corner of a darkened data room, watching sensor logs. Something bothered him. The scout ship's path before disappearing, its last burst transmission matched older reports. And then, something terrifying hit him. All previous fleets that went toward Earth, none ever came back. There were no wrecks, no distress signals, no survivors, only silence. And whispers. One old story floated in Trell's mind, told by drunk technicians in the lower decks, that Earth wasn't just another planet, that it had been waiting, hiding its strength, watching every enemy move, that it was a death world, not because of monsters, but because humans were the monsters. He turned to the stars again. The fleet was already gone, their fate sealed. He whispered one last sentence into the silent room. Not for the Empire, not for the Emperor, but to whoever might hear it. May the stars protect us. Because Trell had a sinking feeling that this was no longer a war. This was a trap sprung too late to escape. The Empire fleet burst out of hyperspace with a flash. Dozens of massive ships formed a perfect grid above Earth. It was meant to be a show of power, a symbol of dominance. Instead, it felt quiet. Too quiet. Admiral Voran stood tall at the command deck of the Oblivion, the largest warship in the Empire's history. He looked at the planet below and sneered. "A little blue ball," he said. Still primitive, still unaware, but something didn't feel right. There were no satellites, no fighters rising to meet them, no planetary shields, not even a single warning broadcast from Earth. Scan the surface, Voron ordered. Find their capital. The crew obeyed, fingers flying across controls, but then silence. No response, Admiral, said a nervous officer. Our scans aren't working. What do you mean? Voron growled, stepping forward. Our sensors are being jammed, the officer explained. But there's no visible source. Another voice called out from a nearby station. Admiral, long-range comms just went dark. We're cut off from the relay stations. And from the other fleets. Voren's smile faded. He turned to the window again, watching Earth turn slowly below them, still peaceful, still silent, still untouched. One of the outer scout ships broke formation, moving to scan lower orbit. Permission to investigate, sir? Asked the scout captain. Granted, Voron replied. Find me something to shoot. The small vessel descended toward the planet, lights blinking. Everyone watched the screen, expecting a simple recon. But halfway through its descent, the ship vanished. No explosion, no warning, no signal, just gone. The bridge went still. Replay that, Voron ordered. They watched again, same thing. One moment the scout ship was there, the next it was not. Was it cloaked weaponry? Someone asked. No energy signatures, another replied. It's like the ship fell through the sky. An eerie message blinked onto the comm screen. No sender, no code, just 3 words. Welcome to Earth. The lights on the bridge flickered. Suddenly, all screens turned black for a moment. Then they lit up again, but now showing strange static. A deep human voice echoed through the system. You were warned, it said. Yet you came. Everyone froze. Who sent that? Voron demanded. No one answered, because no one could trace it. Another scout ship screamed for help over the channel. We're being pulled. No engines, somethings. The message cut off with a short static burst. The crew began to panic. Even Voron's sharp voice couldn't hide the tension now. Form battle lines, he barked. Ready weapons. But there was nothing to fire at. No enemy ships, no fighters. No orbital defenses, just Earth, slowly rotating beneath them. Like a silent predator waiting for its prey. Suddenly, a low-frequency hum began vibrating through the ship. It wasn't coming from space. It was coming from inside the Oblivion. Sparks flew from control panels. One engineer shouted, "Systems are being overwritten. Something's hacking us." How? Voron shouted, "There's no transmission. No signal." Then one officer whispered a single word, terrified. Voron turned to him. What did you say? The humans, he said slowly. They're using advanced, they're inside our systems. More screens shut down, showing distorted images. One screen showed a human child drawing a smiley face. Another showed a Terran soldier saluting. Silently, then a final message flashed across all consoles. We don't need ships to destroy you. And one by one, ships in the fleet began going dark. Engines stalled, lights shut off, entire ships left floating in dead silence on the bridge. Of the Oblivion, only one screen still worked. It zoomed out to show the entire Empire fleet. Surrounded, not by ships, but by nothing, yet that nothing was closing in. Voron clenched his fists. This is cowardice, he growled. No, said a voice behind him. Trull stood there. He had arrived at the command ship in secret. This is intelligence, Trull whispered. This is what happens when you ignore the warnings. As the ship shuddered and lights dimmed further, Trull's voice was the last thing heard before silence took over. They told you not to come to Earth. But you didn't listen, and now Earth had started to answer. The Empire fleet drifted above Earth like silent statues. No one dared speak on the bridge of the Oblivion, not after what they had seen, not after what they had lost. More than a third of their ships had gone offline without a sound. No explosions, no debris, just vanished. Some disappeared mid-sentence. Their captains' voices cut off like someone pressed a button. Admiral Voron stood frozen, fists clenched. sweat dripping down his brow. The mighty fleet he commanded, built from centuries of conquest, was crumbling without a single shot fired. He turned to the comms officer. "Any word from anyone?" The officer swallowed hard. "No, sir, all fleet channels are dead." "But," she paused, eyes wide. "There is something." One signal. Playing on loop. Everyone leaned in. The officer tapped the console. Static crackled. Then a low voice echoed across the bridge. "You were warned," it said slowly. "You were warned. You were warned." Again and again. Same 3 words, same cold, calm voice, no origin. The officer whispered, "It's coming from inside the fleet's comm array." "But we didn't send it." Trell stepped forward from the shadows of the bridge. He had warned them, begged them to stop the invasion. Now, his eyes were fixed on the screen with quiet dread. "This is how they fight," Trell said softly. "They don't scream, they don't charge, they watch, they wait, and they whisper." Voron snapped. "Silence him," he barked. "He's spreading fear." But none of the crew moved. Even they could feel it now, the slow, creeping dread wrapping around them. Then came a new sound. It started low, almost a hum. Then it became clear. It was music, old human music, a piano, soft and haunting. It played through every channel on every ship. "This isn't possible," Voron said, eyes wide. "The fleet's encryption is unbreakable." But Earth was silent. No ships had risen from the surface. No missiles, no fighters, nothing. Yet one by one, the Empire vessels were going dark. Crew lost contact, engines stalled, internal systems locked out. Onboard AI began malfunctioning. Screaming error codes in languages the crew didn't even recognize. Some ships sent distress signals. Desperate cries for help. But no help came. And none of their messages ever reached beyond Earth's orbit, in the dark corners of the oblivion. Strange things began to happen. Doors opened and closed on their own. Lights flickered with no power fluctuation. Some crew members reported hearing footsteps behind them, but no one was there. A pilot from one of the gunships began screaming. He fired all his weapons into empty space, shouting about shadows crawling across his hull. He was silenced instantly, not by force, but by his own ship shutting down, locking him inside. Then came another voice, clear, human, male, calm as still water. "You came here for war," it said, "but you brought no shield for your mind." Voron slammed his fist on the console. "Show yourself," he yelled into the silence. "Face us like warriors," the voice responded without emotion. "This isn't war," it said. "This is memory." Suddenly, every display on the bridge lit up, showing images, not of battles, but of Terran cities destroyed by alien raids, of human children huddled in ruins, of Terran ships shot down as they fled their homes. Footage, real and raw, images the Empire had hidden, denied, and mocked. Now Earth was showing them, reminding them. They hadn't forgotten, they had learned. Then the music stopped, and a countdown appeared. No explanation, no voice, just numbers. 30 minutes and 0 seconds. 29 minutes and 59 seconds. 29 to 58. Voron stared at the screen. "What is this?" he whispered. Trell spoke again, his voice heavy. "I think this is Earth's idea of mercy. They're giving you time to decide." "Decide what?" Voron growled. "To flee," Trell said, "or to vanish like the others." Suddenly, across the entire Empire fleet, emergency lights turned red. Crew panicked. Systems failed. Some ships began spinning out of control. But still, Earth remained calm, silent, and untouched. One small scout vessel, damaged but alive, sent a final message to the oblivion. 4 words, barely clear through the static. "Nothing is real here." And then, silence again. No more music, no more messages, just the countdown, ticking lower and lower. Voron stared at the numbers, and for the first time in his long career, he didn't feel like a conqueror. He felt like a child standing at the edge of something he could never understand. Trell looked around the silent bridge. "No fleet has ever returned from Earth," he said. "Maybe now." We know why. The countdown reached 0 o'clock, and for a few moments, nothing happened. Just stillness. Just silence. No new messages, no flickering screens, no ghost signals. Only the distant hum of failing systems and the quiet breathing of a Kota. Terrified crew. Then the moon moved. It was slow at first, barely noticeable. But Trell saw it. He stood at the corner of the bridge, eyes locked on the display. "The moon," he whispered. "It's not real." Admiral Voron stepped forward, staring in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" But the data didn't lie. The celestial body known as Luna was shifting, rotating in an unnatural arc. Parts of its surface cracked, glowing with lines of red light. Metal plates unfolded, huge black engines ignited. It wasn't a moon, it was a dreadnought, a massive human warship, hiding in plain sight. Across the fleet, alarms screamed. Officers panicked, scrambling to understand what they were seeing. The moon had never moved before. It had been scanned thousands of times over centuries. No signs of machinery, no weapons detected, because it had been disguised. It had been waiting. Trell's voice was soft but certain. "This is the trap," Voron barked orders. "All ships, defensive formations. Lock weapons on that object. Fire at will." But no weapon systems responded. The fleet had already been infected. Command bridges had no control. Every console replied with one word: access denied. One by one, the ships were forced into stasis, engines deactivated, targeting systems frozen, their mighty fleet helpless. Blind, and now surrounded. From the dark side of Earth, more ships appeared. But not hundreds, only 10 Terran vessels. Small in size compared to the Empire's cruisers, but faster, sleeker, more alive. They didn't fly in formations, they hunted. One zipped past an Empire ship, and within seconds, the hull collapsed inward. Not from explosions, but from precision. Gravity strikes, no noise, no fire, just instant silence. Another Terran ship fired a beam so fine, it sliced through 3 vessels like paper. No warning, no build-up. Just a flash and 3 ships turned into drifting metal. On the Oblivion, the crew watched in horror. "This isn't warfare," an officer whispered. "This is art." Voron slammed his fist on the console. "Why aren't they talking to us?" He yelled, "Why aren't they surrendering or making demands?" Trell turned to him. "Because they don't need to," he said. "To them, this isn't war. This is cleanup." More Empire ships tried to flee, desperate captains hoping to escape. But the moment they activated hyperspace drives, the systems shorted out. One ship exploded before it even turned. From Earth, a signal appeared again, a message plain, cold, final. "This fleet has been judged." No name, no emotion, no signature, just a sentence. Then the moon ship opened, its center split in half, revealing a weapon so large it blocked out stars. A gravity cannon, wrapped in black steel and blue plasma coils. Trell whispered, "That's not for a ship." Voron stared. "Then what is it for?" Trell looked straight at him. "It's for us." A bright light burst out from the weapon. It didn't explode, it pulled. 5 Empire ships were crushed into one another, metal shrieking, as they collapsed into a single twisted ball. Then the ball vanished, swallowed into nothing. The fleet was no longer being attacked, it was being erased. Human ships moved like predators through the wreckage. They didn't chase, they didn't shout, they didn't celebrate, they just ended. Ship after ship with surgical precision. Inside the Oblivion, the lights dimmed again. Another message appeared on screen. "One ship will remain. Tell them what you saw." Voron looked around in disbelief. "You mean to let us live?" Trell shook his head. "They're letting us remember. Earth didn't need to destroy the entire fleet. It only needed one witness, one voice, to carry the terror back to the Empire." The Oblivion shook violently. All other ships were gone now, either destroyed or missing. Only one remained. Admiral Voron sat in silence. His pride shattered, his legacy in ruins around him. Broken systems flickered and hummed. Earth had not spoken again, because Earth no longer needed to. The message had been delivered, not with words, but with silence, shadows, and destruction. And deep beneath Earth's clouds, far from view, 1,000 more dreadnoughts remained hidden, waiting for the next empire foolish enough to come near. The Oblivion drifted alone in orbit, silent, broken, and surrounded by invisible eyes. Admiral Voron sat in his command chair, the proud leader of a mighty fleet, now the last man sitting on the last ship left. All around him, the empty void. Stared back, no Terran ships chased, no enemy weapons fired, and yet he felt surrounded. Watched, judged. Trell stood behind him, arms crossed, face pale. They didn't want a war, Trell said quietly. They wanted a message, Voron didn't reply. His thoughts were spinning. He was a warrior, trained in strategy, tactics, battle formations, but this was none of those things. No human fleet had declared war. No terms were offered. There were no negotiations. Only shadows, silence, and precision. This isn't how we fight, Voron muttered. Trell nodded slowly. No, he said. It's how they fight. The lights on the bridge flickered again. A voice crackled through the static, not angry, not loud, just cold and calm, like the whisper of a blade in the dark. You invaded without understanding your enemy, it said. You brought weapons to fight a species that learned to destroy itself before it ever reached the stars. The crew stood frozen. It felt like Earth's voice was inside their minds, like the planet itself had come alive on the main screen. Human history played. Wars, chaos, revolutions, nuclear fire, cities falling. But in each frame, the humans didn't die out. They adapted. In every disaster, they grew sharper, faster, colder. It wasn't peace that made them strong. It was survival. The voice spoke. Again. You use fear as a weapon, it said. We evolved in fear. You use war to take control. We learned to fight without being seen. Then a new horror began. The Oblivion's audio system played a scream, not mechanical human. It wasn't random. It was the last transmission of a Terran civilian ship destroyed by the Empire. A decade ago, the scream of a child, a desperate plea for help that never came. Where did you get this? Voron asked, voice trembling. You sent it, the voice replied. Long ago. The bridge crew couldn't breathe. This wasn't just war, it was guilt. Humans weren't erasing the Empire with firepower. They were breaking their minds, Voron ordered. The screens shut off, but they didn't respond. Instead, a hologram appeared. A quiet forest, an old Earth battlefield, now overgrown with flowers, and a single helmet, sitting in the grass. The voice spoke again. We remember everything. It said, we record everything, and when the time comes, we respond. Trell stepped closer. They didn't build a fleet to fight us, he said. They built a system to study us. Every word, every action, every strike we made. They stored it, and when they knew exactly who we were, they used it. Voron turned to the rest of the crew. Is there no way to escape? One officer shook his head slowly. We're not prisoners, he said. We're an audience. Then something new happened. One screen blinked to life, showing a live feed. The interior of another Empire vessel, deep in a distant system. It was under attack not from Earth, but from within. The ship's AI systems went wild. Turrets turned inward. Lights turned red. Crew screamed as their own systems betrayed them. How is this possible? Voron demanded. Trell answered softly. They didn't just trap us here, he said. They injected themselves into our entire fleet. Back when we scanned Earth. Back when we ignored the warnings. They planted seeds. This was the human tactic. They didn't come for war. They waited for you to come. Then they turned your own strength against you. On the bridge, a final message appeared. No countdown. This time, no sound, just one simple sentence. It ends when you remember who started it. The voice didn't threaten. It didn't boast. It taught. The Oblivion was left untouched, allowed to function. Because the humans didn't want more death. They wanted memory. They wanted understanding. Voron stared at Earth through the viewing window, so small, so quiet, so patient. "You're not warriors," he whispered. "You're predators." Trell didn't smile. He simply replied, "No. We're the reason predators stay away from Earth." Asterisk. The journey back through hyperspace was silent. The Oblivion floated alone, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Admiral Voran stood at the viewing window, his reflection older, weaker, and full of shame. They were the only ship allowed to return. Not because they survived, but because Earth let them. Not a single word had been spoken since they left Terran orbit. No messages, no pursuit, no second attack. Earth had made its point. Now it wanted them to carry the memory home. Trell sat near the navigation panel, silent, thoughtful. He looked nothing like the man who had once begged the Empire to stay away. Now he looked like someone who had seen the truth and could never forget it. "We were never meant to win," he whispered. "We were never meant to understand." Voran didn't answer. He had no words, only guilt. When the Oblivion re-entered Empire space, the High Council was already waiting. They had tracked the ship's return from the moment it emerged. Dozens of warships surrounded them, nervous, armed, ready. But the Oblivion didn't respond. No weapons, no shields, no signals. Only one message left its bridge. "We request to speak." Inside the Grand Hall, the Empire's leaders sat tall and proud. But when Voran entered, they stared at him with confusion. He was not the same man. His armor was dusty, scratched, and his face was tired, eyes hollow. Behind him, Trell followed, calm and quiet. Voran stood before the council, raised his hand and dropped his admiral badge on the floor. It echoed in the silence. "They warned us," he began, "and we didn't listen." The room murmured. Counselors leaned forward, expecting war reports. Casualties, numbers, but Voran didn't give numbers. He gave truth. "They never fired first," he said. "They didn't threaten us. They watched and waited until we gave them everything they needed." "What did they take from you?" one of the elders asked. Voran looked up slowly. "Nothing," he replied. "They let us leave. They let us live. And that's what terrifies me the most." Gasps echoed through the chamber. "Let you live?" the Emperor asked. "You expect us to believe humans spared you?" Trell stepped forward now. He opened a small device, and a hologram lit up above them all. It showed the Terran fleet, 10 ships only, moving like ghosts, and the moon dreadnought, rising from Earth like a god. "This is what we saw," Trell said. "But it's not the weapons that matter. It's what we heard." He played the human transmissions, the soft piano music, the warning, the scream of the Terran child. The council chamber turned cold. "These aren't monsters," Trell continued. "They're a mirror. They showed us what we have done, and what they became because of it." A general stood, voice shaking with anger. "If they're so powerful, why haven't they come here yet? Why hide behind tricks and shadows?" Voran turned to him. "Because they don't need to fight. They already won years ago. They studied us, entered our systems, used our pride as the weapon." He stepped closer to the council. "This was not a defeat in battle," he said. "This was a lesson." The Emperor stood, his golden robe shining in the light. He stared at Voran with unreadable eyes. "What do they want?" he asked. "Peace? A treaty? Tribute?" Voran shook his head. "They want us to remember. They want us to know that the next time, they won't leave survivors." The room fell into silence again. Only Trell spoke now, and his voice was clear. "They sent us home to spread fear, yes," he said, "but also to stop something worse, to stop us from returning." The Emperor turned away. He gave no orders, no commands, only one sentence as he walked out of the hall. "Let Earth be." Later that night, Trell stood alone on the tower balcony. He stared at the stars, at the direction where Earth lay hidden in the void. A single small planet, a Deathworld, a silent guardian of its own nightmare past. He whispered quietly to the stars, "We came to conquer, but they taught us to fear." And now, every Empire child would grow up hearing the same tale of the humans who fought with silence, who defeated an empire with whispers. and who sent home one ship so the galaxy would never forget. It started with a whisper, just a small static-filled ping from deep space. At first, no one paid attention. The Empire's communications network was still recovering, after all. Most of the long-range systems had been disabled by the Terran virus weeks ago, but then the signal grew stronger, clearer, more human. The message came without encryption, without threat, without noise. Just a soft voice speaking across the void. "This is Earth," it said. "We do not seek war. We do not wish conquest, but if you come again, we will not hold back." Every Empire world received it. At the same time, no delay, no distortion. The humans had reached across the stars as easily as breathing. Even in systems that weren't part of the war, even in colonies that had never heard of Earth. The message played over and over on every screen. Every device, every starport speaker. The galaxy went silent on the Empire capital. The High Council gathered again, this time not with anger, but with caution and fear. They had heard Admiral Voron's report. They had seen Trell's recordings, but hearing the humans speak directly, that changed everything. "They're showing restraint," one noble said. "Then we must speak back." Another replied, "Offer peace, stay away, move on." But some weren't convinced. "They're bluffing," one general said. "They spared us once, they won't next time, why wait?" The Emperor sat in silence at the head of the chamber. He hadn't spoken much since the Oblivion returned. But now he raised one hand, and all voices quieted. "This is not fear," he said. "This is wisdom. We attacked, and they responded without anger. They responded with design." He looked across the chamber. "We do not speak again of war with Earth. It is no longer our target. It is our warning." Far beyond the Empire, other civilizations heard the message. The Hive Queens of Velth didn't send their scouts. The merchant lords of Silek canceled their mining expeditions to Sol. Even the ethery nomads who feared no one altered their star charts to mark Earth as sacred. No one wanted to disturb the humans again, but on Earth, there was no celebration, no banners, no pride. The people of Earth had not even been told. Most Terrans still lived their quiet lives, working, dreaming, building, unaware that their AI defense systems had dismantled an entire Imperial fleet. The governments of Earth didn't speak publicly about what happened. The Terran Defense Network remained quiet, hidden, sleeping. Because Earth knew the truth, it didn't need to shout. It didn't need to threaten. The lesson had already been written across the stars. On a quiet hilltop in the American Rockies, a lone technician sat monitoring old transmissions. She wore headphones and chewed gum, flipping through reports half out of boredom. Suddenly, one screen lit up. A direct message from the Empire. Small, respectful, cautious. "We hear you," it read. "And we will not come again." The girl blinked, took off her headphones, and raised her eyebrows. "Well," she said, "took them long." "Enough." She forwarded the message to Central Command, then went back to her coffee. Another day, another alien surrender. In a quiet research bunker beneath Earth's surface, one AI blinked. Its name was a RGO-9. It had been monitoring all known Empire systems since the first scout probe entered. So now it closed several programs, shut down virus protocols, and entered standby mode. A single text appeared on its internal display. "Threat level neutralized. No further action required." Earth was quiet again, but this time, the galaxy was listening on the Oblivion. Admiral Varun stood in his quarters. He no longer wore his medals. He no longer gave orders. He looked out at the stars with different eyes now. Eyes that understood fear, not from a monster, but from a species that had learned restraint. Trell joined him, standing at his side. "Do you think they'll ever attack us?" Voron asked quietly. Trell shook his head. "No," he said. "They don't need to. They've already changed us." Voron nodded. "We came to conquer," he whispered, "and they made us listen." The two men stood in silence, not as warriors but as witnesses far away, beyond known space. A small alien fleet discussed exploring Earth's region. A young captain laughed at the old stories. Humans? He chuckled. Deathworlders? Just myths to scare fools. Then someone at the table leaned forward and whispered, "You ever hear the story of the fleet that vanished?" The laughter stopped, and across the galaxy, every map now had a small red mark near Sol, a label. Written in dozens of languages, but all with the same meaning: do not approach. Earth, the world that waits.